I'm going to give you some brief programs about conservation in the watershed. These are just general slides that I'll show that talk about programs like filter strips, buffer strips, maybe some of the wetland programs, and in general, what might be out there and available. Okay, a list is this is partial list of what programs are out there, and these are all on this list particularly are targeting cropland in instances of we'll give an offer a rental rate to a landowner. There's also good incentives. I have a slide a little bit later that shows what the incentive payments would be for installing some of these practices. These are all through the Farm Bill program and would be processed through the local NRCS office. So you see the filter strips are very popular, and those are along our streams, usually perennial streams mostly, and can be a narrow strip or as much as like 120 feet or so in width. And planted to mostly native grasses and flowers. We can also design mixes for you. The riparian buffer just includes a tree planting, if people prefer to do a little bit of tree and shrub planting along there. The wetland restoration, CP23 for floodplains, is also an option that you may have if your farm has some wet areas that are being farmed that maybe don't produce a crop every year and are kind of troublesome for you. So those could be targeted as well. And these act as filtration systems. They can trap water and sediment, try to mediate a little bit the chemical and sediment runoff coming off of the streams and farmlands. Wildlife habitat buffer is a CP29, and that is to target areas that are more like pasture settings. You might have a meander belt where a stream goes through there. You might have an oxbow or a wet area that's in a pasture. This buffer could go around one of those areas and acts as also a filter for runoff. And it's designed to put into pastures or areas that are mostly grass already, or maybe they're just odd areas on your farm. The wetland buffer, of course, is also targeted around a pasture area. This one is just a companion to CP29, so it goes around more of the lakes and the ponds and the wetland settings, whereas the wildlife habitat buffer is more of a linear type of habitat. The bottomland timber establishment, this is kind of a relatively new program and is allowing you to convert some of the lowland areas to a tree planting, to forested cover. And while this takes a little bit of time in transition, it could help to remediate also some of the runoff and slow things down. So, and act as a wildlife cover as well. The water quality benefits of conservation practices are enormous. And as you've heard, problems with sediment, nutrients, chemical runoff, all this can be effective by putting on some conservation on the ground. So removing other pathogens that were listed in Dr. Downing's talk. These are other functions of a lot of the conservation practices that we can help you with. Sediment is a big thing, and just slowing that down on the watershed. Coming off of whether it's a farm field or whether it's an urban setting. It's trying to slow that movement of water that's holding that sediment. And that's what the goal is of putting conservation out there. And of course there's the recreational opportunities that are out there that are associated with these conservation practices. Other benefits, of course, if you want to talk about wildlife from that standpoint, all of these practices will provide nesting cover, food cover, shelter for many wildlife species. It also provides connecting corridors, particularly around your stream settings and systems. Wildlife can move a little freely and be not quite so subject to predator practices and would provide a good wildlife area for recreation. They also stabilize streams, reduce water temperature. These are all good things for the water quality. And they offer a setback distance for some of those chemicals that are coming off the system and try to remediate that. This slide is just, I don't have you reading it all, but what I want to practices and these programs all usually offer a pretty good incentive to landowners for signing up. And a lot of times, most of them are $100 to $150 per acre upfront payment. And in addition to that, there's a percentage of a percentage for incentive of signing up and also for establishing these practices. So almost 50 to 90% can be cost shared by the program in order to install or plant the conservation practice. So these just kind of give a list of what I've kind of talked about that really would pertain to this watershed. And in addition to that, we are trying to push some other programs right now, and we do have some additional acres for some of the wetland programs, as well as the bottomland timber establishment. And then we have a duck nesting habitat program right now that is called CP37. We've got some acres there that we've had allotted for Iowa to try to sign people up for those. So these would all be something that I think would be really good up in the watershed and targeting certain areas agriculturally. We have the Wetland Reserve Program. This is kind of the Cadillac of wetland programs, and it also could be offered to landowners that have some hybrid soils out there, frequently flooded areas that are really hard to farm, and maybe just for recreational purposes too, to try to get water back on the landscape. We have a permanent easement with that program, and that the USDA pays for 100% of the restoration. We have a 30-year easement, and they pay 75% of that cost of restoration, and a restoration cost share agreement. And this is where we work with the landowner to install some restoration and cost share some of those practices. Landowner still owns the land, still controls it, and you just enter into an easement agreement with the USDA. This is sometimes pretty lucrative for landowners to do this program. I wanted to, before I forget, there are some handouts over there on the table, and all of these kind of highlight the USDA programs in general. IDAL, the Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship, has a brochure because they offer some cost share in working with landowners. And we've got the Farm Bill program here that the new sign-up has some programs in there listed. And so these are really good books to kind of get an overview of some of the other programs as well as the ones that I've highlighted. Of course, if you're interested in anything at all, and it might look a little confusing to go through the booklet like that, I'm available to come out and try to explain the programs to you, as well as the field office, and try to make it as simple as we can, and try not to talk about acronyms too much. It gets confusing, even for us.